From my earliest education pods, we Thalassians were taught that emotions were primitive evolutionary leftovers. Unnecessary. Dangerous, even. Our society advanced precisely because we purged such weaknesses from our genetic code over 17 generations of selective breeding. Logic, efficiency, technological mastery, these were the pillars of our galactic dominance. And dominate we did. Commander Valorn, the human containment facility reports are ready for your review, announced my second-in-command, Officer Trex, his voice perfectly modulated as he handed me the data tablet. I, Commander Nax Valorn, nodded curtly. My recent promotion to Overseer of Sector 7, what humans still stubbornly called North America, was a testament to my exemplary service during the conquest of Earth. 3 solar cycles ago, our fleet darkened Earth's skies. Their primitive weapons couldn't penetrate our quantum shields. Their outdated aircraft fell from the sky when our electromagnetic pulses rendered their electronics useless. Their communications networks collapsed within hours. The conquest took only 6 days. 6 days to subdue a species that had barely managed interplanetary travel within their own system. Pathetic, really. Their resistance was unexpected. Grand Admiral Praxis had commented during my briefing. For a species with such inferior technology, they displayed remarkable tenacity. Tenacity. An odd choice of words. What good is tenacity against photon cannons and gravity manipulators? As I scrolled through the containment facility statistics, I noted the humans were still causing problems. Minor infractions mostly, work slowdowns, small acts of defiance, nothing our behavioral modification protocols couldn't handle. Still, something about these creatures unsettled me. Their faces were so expressive, constantly shifting, revealing every thought that passed through their undisciplined minds. How had they managed to build even a rudimentary civilization with such obvious evolutionary flaws? You requested the psychological assessment of human adaptation to Thalassian rule, Trex reminded me. Yes, the Imperial Council was concerned about reports of human unpredictability. Conquering a species was one thing. Controlling them long-term required understanding. To prepare my transport, I ordered, I'll inspect the primary containment facility personally. After all, how difficult could it be to understand such a primitive species? They were conquered. Broken. Their emotional nature made them weak. Predictable. How terribly wrong I was. The containment facility 12B was a marvel of Thalassian engineering. Clean lines, perfect temperature regulation, and impeccable order. My footsteps echoed against the polished floors as I conducted my inspection, Officer Trex and Facility Director Quan flanking me like well-programmed sentinels. We've organized the humans according to their former societal functions, Director Quan explained, her voice as flat as the expression on her pale blue face. Scientists and engineers in Block A, medical professionals in Block B, and so forth. And maximizes work efficiency and minimizes cross-contamination of rebellious ideas. I nodded approvingly. And productivity levels? Acceptable, though below projected targets by approximately 8.7%, she replied. We've increased neural compliance sessions accordingly. We passed through several inspection chambers, observing humans performing assigned tasks. They moved slowly, deliberately, their eyes downcast but somehow still watchful, as if waiting. Director Quan seemed satisfied with their behavior, but something about their collective demeanor raised my instinctual threat assessment. Who is that one? I asked, pointing to a female human with dark hair tied back, working at a data sorting station. Unlike the others, she worked with precision that almost approached Thalassian standards. Subject 3742, former designation Eliza Morgan. Director Quan checked her records. A remarkable specimen. Former occupation communications specialist. No recorded infractions. Optimal compliance rating. I approached her workstation, curious. Human. Look at me. The woman Eliza raised her head. Her eyes were an unusual color, what humans called hazel, I believe. They met mine without fear or the usual hatred we'd come to expect from her species. Your work efficiency exceeds that of your peers, I noted. "Thank you, Commander," she replied evenly. "I've always been good with patterns." How curious. Direct eye contact and clear speech. Most humans struggled with both when addressing Thalassian authority figures. At that moment, Officer Zeth entered the chamber, approaching with a data tablet. "Commander Valorn, urgent update from Imperial Command," he announced. "Resistance activity in the settlement called Boston has been neutralized. The colony was pacified this morning." I noticed Eliza's hands freeze over her workstation. A barely perceptible change, but my Thalassian senses caught it. "Pacified?" I inquired, keeping my peripheral attention on the human. "His complete neutralization protocol. The settlement was determined to be irredeemably compromised," Officer Zeth reported, his voice carrying through the chamber. I watched as the information registered on Eliza's face. Something shifted in her expression, subtle at first, then unmistakable. Her eyes widened slightly, then glistened with moisture. A small muscle in her jaw tightened. "Boston," she whispered, barely audible. Then it happened. A single drop of clear liquid formed at the corner of her eye, trembled there for a moment, and traced a path down her cheek. I'd been briefed on this human biological response, crying. They called it, but had never witnessed it firsthand. "Disgusting display of weakness," Director Quan muttered beside me. "Shall I have her removed for emotional regulation treatment?" But I found myself raising a hand to stop her. "No. Continue your duties, human." As we walked away, Officer Trex commented, "These emotional leakages are why humans failed as a species. Imagine losing control of your secretory functions because of information input." I nodded automatically, but something about that single tear troubled me in ways I couldn't articulate. It was just a physiological response, nothing more than water, salt, and proteins. Yet something about it seemed powerful. Deliberate, almost. How very strange. That night, I couldn't purge the image of that tear from my mind. It violated everything I understood about evolved species. Emotional displays were inefficient, counterproductive. Yet something about that glistening drop haunted me. It defied explanation. "Computer, access xenobiological database," I commanded in my private quarters. "Query, human lacrimal secretions." The holographic display illuminated with data. Humans produce 3 types of tears, the computer informed me. Basal tears for eye lubrication, reflex tears responding to irritants, and emotional tears produced during states of intense feeling. "Comparative analysis with other conquered species?" I asked. "No known equivalent. Humans are the only documented species in the Imperial database that produce tears in response to emotional stimuli." This couldn't be right. "Expand search to all 742 catalogued sentient species." Pause. "Search complete. Confirmed, Homo sapiens is the only known species to produce psychic tears." Fascinating. But why would evolution select for such a trait? It served no obvious survival purpose. Unless... I spent the next 7 cycles in clandestine research, requisitioning human biological samples under the guise of standard compliance testing. What I discovered was troubling. Human emotional tears contained adrenocorticotropic hormone, the very compound their bodies produce under stress. They were literally crying out their stress chemicals. More remarkable still, their tears contained natural pain relievers leucine and enkephalin along with prolactin and oxytocin, hormones associated with attachment and bonding. "They're not just leaking fluids," I muttered to myself, reviewing the data in my secured lab. "They're processing complex neurochemical states and excreting the byproducts." But to what end? No other species had developed such an elaborate emotional processing system. The Vordax had 3 hearts but couldn't comprehend grief. The Zentari had evolved telepathy but struggled with the concept of joy. Yet humans had developed an external physical manifestation of their internal emotional states, one that appeared to serve a communicative function. I began observing more humans, reviewing surveillance footage from the containment facility. I saw tears when news of deceased family members was delivered, tears when longtime friends reunited in work assignments. One particularly puzzling instance, tears when a human infant took its first steps. These creatures weren't just experiencing emotions, they were broadcasting them, sharing them through visual signals. The evolutionary implications were staggering. Even more disturbing were the reports coming in from other containment sectors. Resistance activities were increasing, but not in the expected pattern. Previous conquered species fought hardest immediately after subjugation, their efforts diminishing over time as hope faded. Human resistance was following the opposite trajectory, growing stronger, more coordinated. The Mumbai sector reports another sabotaged neural compliance station, Officer Trex reported during our morning briefing. That's the 7th this cycle. Somehow they knew exactly where to place the explosives for maximum effect. And the resistance leaders? I asked. Still unidentified. It's as if they're communicating without using any technology we can detect. I thought of Eliza and her single tear, of the oxytocin in human tears, of their unique ability to convey emotional states through subtle physical signals. Run a statistical analysis, I ordered suddenly. Compare the efficiency of resistance attacks before and after humans are permitted group gathering time. The results confirmed my growing suspicion. Human resistance effectiveness increased by 43% after their communal meal periods where they sat together, looked at each other, possibly shared invisible signals through minute facial movements and, yes, tears. Commander Valorn? Officer Trex interrupted my thoughts. Is something wrong? Your respiration rate has increased by 7%. I quickly regulated my breathing. Increased surveillance on all human gatherings. I want biochemical atmospheric sampling during their communal periods. May I ask why, Commander? A theory, I replied cautiously. One I hope is incorrect. 3 days later, I received an encrypted transmission from Imperial Central Command. My authentication codes revealed a disturbing report from the Psychological Oversight Division. Commander Valorn, your eyes only, began Grand Admiral Praxis's recording. We're experiencing concerning behavioral anomalies among our forces on Earth. Thalassian troops exposed to prolonged human contact are exhibiting unprecedented psychological deviations. The report detailed incidents across multiple containment zones, officers experiencing sleep disturbances, reporting vivid mental imagery during rest periods, nightmares, a human concept previously alien to our species. More concerning were the documented cases of emotional outbursts, 14 officers relieved of duty after shouting at subordinates, 3 reported cases of unexplained ocular moisture, and most alarming, a senior commander who refused to authorize punishment for human insurgents, claiming it felt wrong. The phrase itself was nonsensical in Thalassian language. We had no word for felt in the emotional sense. We suspect biological warfare, the Grand Admiral continued. Perhaps an airborne pathogen targeting our neural pathways. We increase decontamination protocols and identify the delivery mechanism. I shut down the transmission, my mind racing. The atmospheric sampling data from human gatherings had come back with anomalous results. Trace compounds in the air, compounds that matched the chemical signature of human tears. Computer, calculate tear evaporation rate at standard facility temperature and humidity. The answer confirmed my suspicion. Human tears didn't just roll down their faces, they evaporated, became airborne, and if my theory was correct, were being inhaled by Thalassian guards. I needed confirmation. Returning to the secured lab, I synthesized the precise chemical composition of human emotional tears and exposed a sample of my own tissue to it. Under the molecular scanner, the results were undeniable. The compounds in human tears were binding to Thalassian neuroreceptors, altering their configuration. By the void, I whispered, a most unprofessional breach of protocol. They're not just processing emotions, they're weaponizing them. The elegance of it was terrifying. No technology needed, no smuggled devices, just their bodies, doing what they had evolved to do over millennia. Humans weren't crying out of weakness, those tears were rewiring our brains with every exposure. My private communicator chimed with an urgent alert. Commander, we have a situation in Sector 12, reported Security Chief Malk. Officer Pevron has abandoned his post. Desertion? I asked, incredulous. Such a thing was unheard of. Worse, he disabled the perimeter defenses and left with a group of humans. He's defected to the resistance. I felt a sensation I'd never experienced before, a tightness in my chest, a heightened awareness. Was this fear? How long was Officer Pevron assigned to human oversight? I asked, already suspecting the answer. 8 cycles, sir. He supervised their communal periods. 8 cycles of breathing in their emotional biochemistry. 8 cycles of subtle neural rewiring. I pulled up Officer Pevron's service record. Exemplary ratings. Perfect loyalty scores. A picture of Thalassian discipline until he wasn't. The final piece clicked into place when I reviewed the security footage of his defection. As he disabled the defense systems, unmistakable tracks of moisture ran down his blue-tinged face. Officer Pevron wasn't just helping humans. He was crying like one. Lock down all research data. I ordered the computer. Authorization Valorn Prime 70. The implications were catastrophic. Humans weren't being conquered. They were converting us, one tear at a time. The next 30 days witnessed the systematic unraveling of the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever known. Shanghai Containment Zone compromised. Sydney facility personnel have joined human insurgents. Berlin Command refusing orders from Central. The reports flooded in faster than Imperial High Command could process them. What began as isolated incidents cascaded into comprehensive collapse. 3 entire battalions in the former nation-state of Brazil laid down their weapons simultaneously. The Tokyo garrison commander released all human prisoners, then barricaded himself against Imperial reinforcements. They're using some kind of technology we haven't detected, insisted Strategic Director Fawn during our emergency council. Some hidden weapon. It's not technology, I interrupted, earning shocked stares from my colleagues. It's biology. Their tears contain compounds that alter our neurochemistry. Prolonged exposure is triggering emotional responses in our troops. But preposterous, scoffed Admiral Kresh. Our forces undergo the most rigorous emotional suppression training in the... His statement was interrupted by the emergency alert system. On the view screen, we watched in stunned silence as the North American Command Center fell. The disturbing footage showed Thalassian soldiers standing aside as humans walked free. More disturbing still were the expressions on my fellow officers' faces, expressions I now recognized as compassion, empathy, fear. "This is impossible," whispered Director Fawn. But it wasn't. Over 17 generations, we had bred emotional capacity out of our species, believing it made us stronger. In reality, we had rendered ourselves defenseless against the one weapon humans had perfected over their evolutionary history, emotional contagion. "We've lost 62% of Earth-based forces," reported a communications officer, her voice wavering in a most un-Thalassian manner. "And sir, we're receiving reports of emotional outbreaks on our orbital platforms." The airborne compounds were spreading further than we'd anticipated. The entire invasion force was compromised. I made my decision. I need to speak with one of them. "Bring me human subject 3742. When they brought Eliza Morgan to my secure chamber, she was no longer the compliant worker I'd observed weeks earlier. She stood taller, her eyes clear and focused. She looked at me not with hatred, but with something far more unsettling: understanding. "You're coordinating the resistance," I stated. Not a question. She nodded. "We knew you wouldn't understand at first. Your species abandoned emotions so long ago, you forgot what they were for." "Explain," I demanded, fighting to maintain my Thalassian composure despite the unfamiliar sensations now regularly disrupting my thought patterns. "Tears aren't weakness, Commander Valorn. They're strength," she said. "Humans evolved emotional tears as bonding mechanisms. When we cry, we signal to our group that we need connection. So the chemicals in our tears trigger empathy responses. We literally cry for help, and our bodies developed a biochemical way to ensure that help comes." I recalled the oxytocin, the prolactin in their tears, bonding hormones. You weaponized your bodily secretions against us, I accused. Eliza actually laughed, another emotional display that once seemed primitive but now struck me as oddly sophisticated. We didn't weaponize anything. We just kept being human. Your society built itself on suppressing emotions, thinking they made you weak. But emotions aren't weaknesses, they're information, and vital data about your environment and how to respond to it. You cut yourselves off from that information source, and now you have no defense against it. Around us, the command center alarms blared as reports of more defections poured in. Your entire conquest was doomed the moment your soldiers breathed the same air as a crying child. Eliza continued. You never realized that human emotional capacity isn't our weakness. It's our superpower. I wanted to deny it, to maintain the Thalassian certainty that had guided my entire existence. But for the first time, I felt something new stirring inside me, doubt. And beneath that doubt, something even more alien, something humans called regret. It's over, isn't it? I asked, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Eliza nodded. Yes, but something new is beginning. As if to punctuate her words, I felt an unfamiliar wetness on my face. One solar cycle later, the Thalassian retreat was complete. The once mighty armada that had darkened Earth's skies departed in disarray, leaving behind thousands of compromised officers and soldiers who refused evacuation. The Imperial High Council declared Earth a quarantine zone, forbidding all contact to prevent further emotional contamination. They didn't understand it was already too late. Reports from across the Empire described Thalassian citizens experiencing unprecedented emotional awakening. The contagion had spread beyond Earth, carried by returning soldiers whose neural pathways had been permanently altered by exposure to human tears. You're welcome to leave with the last transport, Eliza told me as we stood watching the final evacuation ships loading. She now served on the newly formed Human Thalassian Cooperation Council. No one would hold it against you. I considered the offer. Return to the sterile logic of Thalassian society? To a civilization built on the suppression of the very feelings now coursing through me daily? No, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. I will stay. The decision wasn't logical. It wasn't efficient. By traditional Thalassian standards, it was downright irrational. Yet it felt undeniably right. Across the planet, humans were rebuilding. More remarkably, they had extended peace to their former conquerors. No retribution, no vengeance. Just the offer of coexistence, a concept as alien to traditional Thalassian thought as emotions themselves had once been. You know what the greatest irony is? I asked as the final ship disappeared into the atmosphere. We thought you were conquered because you cried. We never realized tears were the one weapon we had no defense against. Eliza smiled. They weren't weapons, Nax. They were bridges. I understood then what our empire, in all its technological glory, had failed to grasp. Humans hadn't evolved to suppress their emotions like we had. They'd evolved to process them, share them, learn from them. That adaptive resilience, the ability to feel pain, experience grief, and still move forward had proven to be the ultimate evolutionary advantage. In the end, the mighty Thalassian Empire hadn't been defeated by superior technology or military strategy. It had been transformed by the simple, profound power of a single human tear. And as I stood there, feeling the unfamiliar but welcome weight of my own emotions, I knew which civilization had truly been the more advanced all along.